Feast on your soul.
Face on this motherfucker.
When the 2013 Evil Dead movie came out, I was incredibly skeptical about seeing it. The original film is my favorite horror movie of all time, and the Evil Dead trilogy is very near and dear to my heart. Of all the movies out there to remake, why did they choose this one? I wanted an Evil Dead 4, goddammit. But still, I kept up with the news and information as it was being made and reluctantly went to the theater to go check it out, secretly wanting to hate it, wanting to be able to articulate why it was a failure and should have never been done in the first place. And then, after all of the carnage, the gore, the chainsaw chaos, the credits began to roll, and I thought, holy shit, that was awesome. Not only was this movie a worthy addition to the franchise, but it's also one of the best horror movies of the 2010s. Yeah, I loved it. And although we never technically got an Evil Dead 4 movie, we did get the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show that premiered just 2 years later after the remake, and it gave us 3 seasons and 30 episodes of a continuation of Ash's storyline, which is way more content than we ever would have gotten in a 90-minute movie anyway. Plus, the show turned out better than I could have possibly imagined. What more could I ask for? And now that both of these things exist, they are great to appreciate both in their own ways of continuing Evil Dead. But there is some ambiguity about the Evil Dead 2013 being a remake at all, with many claiming that it takes place in the same universe as the original 3 Evil Dead films. So, is this actually Evil Dead 4 in disguise? Well, yes, but also no. First of all, continuity in the Evil Dead franchise right from the get-go has always been in fluctuation. Notoriously, the first several minutes of Evil Dead 2 speedruns the story of the original Evil Dead. It cuts out all of the other characters besides Ash and Linda, and then it eventually picks up where the first one left off, with Ash getting hit by the demonic force. This was because back then, Sam Raimi and the others didn't have the rights to use footage of their own movie, and so they used creative measures to just remake the film in the first 5 minutes of Evil Dead 2. But without knowing that, for years after, a lot of people started watching Evil Dead 2 just believing that Ash was stupid enough to return to the same cabin again. And there's also evidence to consider maybe he would do that. As well, at the end of Evil Dead 2, it shows Ash land in medieval times, but then when you start Army of Darkness, it redoes the entire landing and arrival segment, showing a completely different version of him arriving back in time. So, trying to establish any solid continuity in the Evil Dead franchise is a futile effort, and trust me, I would know. Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV show, it does a great job considering everything that's happened to be canon in one way, shape, or form, and it also makes plenty of jokes and references to the inconsistencies. For example, when Ash gets back to the cabin, he can't remember if he found the book in the basement or on the table, which it was basement in the original, table in Evil Dead 2. It's tongue-in-cheek about the whole thing, but it also does consider everything that you've watched to be real. When it comes to the 2013 movie, it was originally conceptualized to be a legitimate remake. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell wanted to take the series back to its horror roots and retell it in a more modern way with updated special effects and an actual budget this time. Sam Raimi said, "I really felt like it was a great ghost story that deserved to be told again on the big screen, but with high-quality visuals and great acoustic treatment this time." They also wanted to give new filmmakers a chance to stretch their wings and establish themselves in the same way that they did with their original Evil Dead. So they considered the remake to be a vessel for that for a new filmmaker. And after seeing a short film by Fede Alvarez, they approached him with the offer. Fede Alvarez said, "One day I was sitting at my place getting a call saying that Sam Raimi wants you to remake The Evil Dead. What? I tried to figure out what to do. On the same day, I talked to Sam, and he was like, 'Do you have an idea?' And I was like, 'Hell no, do you?' So with coming up with the concept, the structure of the movie, even admitted by Alvarez himself, was pretty much the same as the original. The major difference being that the cast of 5 characters that would be there would all be original characters and would not feature Ash. It's new kids and a new reason for being at the cabin, but the events play out similarly. So at least conceptually, this was, for all intents and purposes, created to be a remake. But in the same way as something like Dawn of the Dead from 2004, where you take the base premise and idea, but then you completely do your own thing with it, and you don't try to recreate the same exact characters. That's probably the best way to do it, honestly, because nobody wants to see somebody other than Bruce Campbell step into the shoes of Ash. And if they did put Ash in the movie, then that would absolutely establish a new continuity, and there would be no questioning it. So before its release and with its marketing, it was presented as a remake, not a part 4. But afterwards, that's where things get a little bit more murky. Though Ash isn't really in the movie, after the credits, there's a close-up shot of Bruce Campbell turning to the camera and saying groovy, which isn't really anything. The background is all blacked out, we don't know where Ash is, and at the time, I didn't take this to be anything more than just a fun wink to the audience at the end of the movie if you stayed through the credits. To me, it wasn't any evidence of continuity. But the internet had a different takeaway and considered it to be confirming that Ash was in this universe. I mean, horror fans will take anything and run with it, just like putting the Necronomicon in Jason Goes to Hell. I'm not even going to go there right now. But other than the scenario being almost exactly the same, there wasn't anything that majorly contradicts the previous 3 Evil Dead movies, and hell, they contradict themselves anyways. When asked about the Ash after credits moment, Alvarez had this to say: "I guess we're saying this movie lives in the same mythology as the original films. It's almost the same timeline. It happens maybe 30 years after the originals. I think that scene at the end is telling you that Ash exists in this universe and that he's not a character who doesn't exist in this mythology. Hopefully we will see him in future Evil Dead movies." Okay. Terms like this universe and this mythology are still a little bit odd to use. Does he mean that 2013 is its own timeline and that there is an Ash in this timeline? Or does he mean that 2013 is in the original timeline? Well, then there was a tweet from 2018 where he was asked straightforwardly if the movie is, in fact, a remake. Fede Alvarez said, "It continues the first one. The coincidences of events between the first film and mine are not coincidences, but more like dark fate created by the evil book. Ash's car still there rusting away." That sounds definitive, but it's still kind of confusing. It continues the first one. Okay, does he mean just the first movie? And then about Ash's car, okay, yes, we do see the car in the movie, but this is an established running gag that is in every Sam Raimi movie, where the same car makes an appearance, even movies that have nothing to do with Evil Dead. When I saw this, I assumed that this was just another part of the ongoing cameo that's in every Sam Raimi movie. Even though Raimi didn't direct this, he produced it, I assumed it was another wink at the audience. Plus, if we do want to consider continuity, we saw Ash's car get sucked into the portal back to the Middle Ages at the end of Evil Dead 2. That's where the car ends up. So it wouldn't just be sitting there rusting away in front of the cabin. Unless this is not considering Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness into the equation, and instead it's branching into an alternate timeline, only counting the original. I don't know. In 2019, Sam Raimi commented on the 2013 movie saying, "I think that's part of the Evil Dead universe, but not part of the Bruce Campbell storyline." It was from Bloody Disgusting, and they asked if the events of the remake were happening off in a corner of the original universe, and Raimi replied, "Exactly." Then, in another interview with Alvarez in 2020, he said that he originally planned for Ash to have more of a definitive cameo at the end of the movie, where Mia is picked up on the side of the road by a truck driver, and the driver turned out to be Ash. But Alvarez eventually wanted to get them together in the same movie and maybe even have them be related. He said the whole intention was to do that, to team Ash and Mia up. That was always the goal. But I think Sam had different goals. Sam wanted to have Bruce back for the TV show that came out a few years after that. It was complex to make the movie at the time, and whatever mythology we were going to create with them. And it would have been complicated for the show because Sam had his own ideas of what would happen to Ash, and he wanted to tell that story. Also, on the point that they might be related, Alvarez said, "We had a lot of intentions of doing that. She still might be related. If she is, she doesn't know. We had a very complex character past for Mia and David. They were siblings, but they had different parents, different fathers. So, yes, they might be related." Perhaps trying to imply that Ash was her father, and ironically enough, they did give Ash a daughter in season 3 of the show. So these things reflect each other, but this idea never came to pass. And then the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show was made, which continues the original 3 films, although they couldn't use any references from Army of Darkness because of rights issues, yada yada. But also that TV show makes no references to 2013 at all. And the next film that was released was Evil Dead Rise, which once again tells its own story and doesn't make any references to 2013 or the originals. People have also stated that there are 3 Necronomicons, as seen in Army of Darkness, and that one of them could have been for the original timeline, the other one for 2013, and the third for Evil Dead Rise. Visually, the books don't look anything alike, and I always assumed the other 2 books in Army of Darkness on the altar were just decoys for Ash to try, as he does grab all 3 before he goes to the correct choice. But again, with all of the continuity errors, the books not looking the same probably doesn't matter. It doesn't even really look like the same book between Evil Dead 1 and 2. So ultimately, what is Evil Dead 2013? Is it a remake, or is it actually Evil Dead 4 in disguise? The truth is, it doesn't matter. Or more specifically, it doesn't matter until it matters. I call it a remake because that's what it feels like to me. It's 5 kids that go to a cabin, open the Book of the Dead, are possessed and killed, and that's what the original is. Everything before and up to its release was presented as a remake. But in the years after, with various interviews and statements, you could conclude that they are now saying that it takes place in the same universe. But I think until they do something with that idea and truly confirm it in a movie, it feels like the original Evil Dead trilogy is its own thing, and if you want a continuation of that, you have the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV series, which is amazing, and you guys should definitely check it out if you haven't. And then when it comes to the 2013 movie and Evil Dead Rise, these feel like standalone stories that use lore and mythos of Evil Dead in their own way. And like what Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell said in the beginning, these are ways for younger filmmakers to stretch their wings and be creative within the framework of Evil Dead. When and if the time comes to connect all of the movies together, that will be awesome, and I couldn't wait to see it. I would love to see Ash leading a team of Mia, Beth, Kelly, and Pablo. But until that time, I think it's purposely ambiguous and within a franchise that's never had continuity be its main concern in the first place. With Evil Dead, it's about the scares, it's about the humor, and the friends that die along the way. Anyways, guys, what are your thoughts? Do you consider 2013 to be a remake or a sequel? Let me know down below in the comments. Thanks as always for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Give the video a like and comment to help it out in the algorithm. Also, if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have Patreon, channel memberships, and all the social media links where you can follow me linked down below. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.
Groovy.